Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. Before we begin with Kris's unparalleled metaphysical content, I know that many of you watching have felt a sense of being ungrounded, unhinged, or out of balance in these times. I know, I felt this way too. Kris's teachings have similarities to popular ideas such as the law of attraction and the secret. The difference is that Kris's knowledge goes even deeper into reality creation and helps resolve many of the problems identified with the law of attraction. The information he shares helps restore grounding and that sense of balance that many of us have lost in these times. If you're ready for the law of attraction and secret 2.0 and want to be a part of this fantastic community, then hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment below, and press the bell icon so that you get notified when Kris releases cool, new metaphysical content. Kris also offers life-changing online seminars, private sessions, and mentoring sessions, which are all linked in the description below. Glad you're here with us, and let's jump into it. And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And today we're doing another one of our very special group sessions and panel sessions with a number of friends and students of Kris. So I'm really excited. I know last time we talked a little bit about leadership as well as teaching and creating supportive and fulfilling environments. And this time we heard a little bit from Kris. I think going to be talking about, has the world gone bananas, which is really interesting. I know there's a lot of people with some of the events going on and things happening, feeling a little unmoored or ungrounded, perhaps like you've woken up in a different reality, like a strange time. And so I think we'll be digging into that today. So really excited, and we're going to go ahead and go around and let our panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start with Alan.
Well, you got the name right. Yeah, I'm in Colorado, and I've got my 20 years in with Kris, so I'm waiting for my retirement check.
It's on the way. It's on the way. And so, yeah, I'll introduce myself. I'm Daniel Winkle. I've been working with Kris in person or in the seminars for about 7 or 8 years now, and hosting now the Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And Serge?
Yes, well, I am Serge, and I'm in Toronto, Canada. And oh, there's April. So I've been working with Kris for 40 years, and it's still a surprise as how he keeps unfolding information and material and interacting with people, even after all this time. In other words, he doesn't shut up.
And you're ready to go bananas?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of in the mood for a banana split sundae, so.
Oh, there we go. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm from Oregon, and I've been studying with Kris and Serge for a while. And these sessions are really fun, and I gain a lot from them.
Rogel?
Hello, I'm Rogel, and I am in Spain, in Barcelona city. I love the Kris teachings. I suppose I am a newer here, but I really enjoy it. I appreciate it a lot. I don't know if you listen me well or.
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Thanks, Rogel. Thanks for being here. Veronica?
I am so happy to be with you tonight. I'm a New Yorker, and I live on Long Island. I've been with the Kris group now for about 4 years, and I'm constantly learning new things. I'm really happy to be with the group.
I was waiting to hear that New Yorker accent.
Did I come through?
I'm in New York.
And I drink coffee. Right?
Okay, coffee. I love that.
Okay.
All right, Chuck?
Hi, my name is Chuck. I discovered Kris's stuff in about 2003, and then started participating in workshops probably in 2006, I think. Love the material, always have. It's always great stuff. And I think that anybody who joins and starts hanging out with Kris has done something very cool for themselves.
All right, thanks. Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm from Toronto, and I first came across Kris when I read a book on dreams, and then I attended a few meetup groups, and I've always found the information very valuable and very expansive and very life enhancing. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, welcome to Life from the Inside Out, Carrie.
Thanks.
Ellen?
I'm Ellen Gilbert. I live in Wilmington, Delaware, and I also have been a long-time student of Kris and Serge's. 20 years. Let's just say 20 years and just leave it at that.
All right, Bev?
My name is Beverly Campbell, and I'm in Peterborough, Ontario. I used to be in Toronto. I've been studying with Serge and Kris now for about 6 years, so I'm a relatively newbie. But I find that it's really helpful in my day-to-day life, that the perspective that he gives makes life seem simpler somehow and easier to deal with. So.
Thanks, Bev. KP? Oh, KP, go ahead and unmute, please.
Hey, I'm from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm KP. I've been following the Kris material since 2006, maybe around that time, and it's been very useful to me, and I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, thanks, KP.
Okay.
Good to have you with us. Allison?
Yes, hello. I'm Allison from Oregon. So hi, Lisa, another Oregonian. I've been studying metaphysics for probably close to 25 years, but I'm a newcomer to the Kris material. Basically started reading the online stuff about 3 or 4 years ago, and I found it just wonderful and expansive, and I'm greatly enjoying the opportunity here. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Kathleen?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Kathleen Garvey, and I first was introduced to Kris in 2002 while I was living in Alaska, and I had a session with him where I was so captivated, I could not stop engaging opportunities to interact with Kris and Serge and the material ever since. And I incorporated some of the international sessions and the Monday evening group sessions and seminars series. And it's a thrill and a delight to have this expansive material at our fingertips, literally. And what a joy. Very, very appreciated and happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Kathleen. And thanks to all the panelists and participants today. And I don't know, Serge, what do you say? I think it's time to bring Kris in and see what he has to say about going bananas.
I guess monkey's your uncle, huh?
Yes, I guess are monkey sounds allowed in this episode? I don't know.
Now, we trust that you are all comfortable, and we thank you for your consideration.
Oh, very comfortable. Thanks, Kris.
As we suggested the topic to Joseph, has the world gone bananas? Over the last few years, with the advent of COVID-19, people have been experiencing a rather different kind, almost a distortion of their lives. In ways they seem to have difficulties to fully grasp. And as Beverly mentioned, the information we share, of course, we are not the first to share this information. There have been many before, and there will be many after. We are just one of many, many voices. Your lives sometimes appear complicated. Your lives sometimes appear bizarre, as if you need some kind of orientation. Your compass seems to be off. People's feelings and emotions appear strange to them, and therefore their living situations and their realities may appear strange, out of focus, almost on the peripheral, and difficult to fully understand now because things are different. And again, as Beverly suggested, this information is meant to encourage you to return to the simplicity of life. Your lives are meant to be simple, even when there are certain complications. And the greatest source of complications and of challenges, of course, is your own thinking. The manner in which you accept and believe the ideas that come to you, that seem to pop into your head. Because often you accept them indiscriminately. And that often leads to challenges because you have yet to decipher your own particular intention. And that in itself is not necessarily a mystery, but since time immemorial, there have been all manner of individuals and organizations that have tried to understand and even study these kinds of experiences, the mystery of life, therefore creating countless types of mystery schools, along with various kinds of religious organizations, to try and understand what motivates the human spirit. What kind of challenges have you brought to your lives, and what kind of solutions can you also bring? And that becomes something worthy of investigation. The moment you feel that your lives may be off kilter, on tilt, not anchored any longer, your feelings may tell you a great many things about the beliefs or expectations that you give attention or energy to. That attention is what you feed those ideas that you have in your mind at any particular time. So we invited everyone to participate in every which way possible, and we are most thankful for your participation. And in this way, we can bring about perhaps some insights into your own perspectives. What has changed in your lives? Did you suddenly come to the realization that your lives and life in general no longer appeared as you knew it? But there is something that has yet to come about, as if perhaps just around the corner, is something that will help clarify, that will help make sense of what you are feeling. And these are actually very important. They are not figments of your imagination. It is not because you are having an episode of lightheadedness or dizziness. These are genuine experiences because there is something afoot, my dear Watson. And we are intending to help sort some of this out with you. So perhaps one of you might like to pitch in and perhaps to offer a certain perspective on what you feel about this subject matter.
Kris, I have a contribution in that area. To me, there's a parallel here with with what Jane called her sinful self material, and that is as we open up to the difference between the outside world and my outside world, there's a huge difference, and we think we have to deal with the outside world. But what we're really getting focused on is just how to create my outside world. And to my way of thinking, the sinful self helps, its real intention is to get us to pay attention to things and not be naive, not be taken advantage of, not be surprised by others' behavior. But it, tends to disorient us and even scare us to death. And even bring the end of life as it did with Jane. So that's kind of the way I've approached it, is in tandem with this whole concept of the different aspects of self and the different aspects of the world as opposed to my world.
Indeed, and we understand what you mean and where you are coming from. And even though not necessarily everyone will understand or relate to the concept of the sinful self as expressed by Rupert or Jane Roberts in her work with the personality called Seth, it is extremely important because there are certain basic aspects of your personality and your innate worldview, which we refer to as love, creativity, and collaboration. And the idea of a sinful self usually comes from an outside or external authority, whether in the guise of a familial environment or religious or others. Your own basic nature actually rebels against that. Your own self, the soul, knows without any reservations that it is not tainted, stained, or sinful, or somehow or other in need of redemption. It knows that its very nature is sacred and holy. It is whole. And superimposed ideas, such as the concept of a bad self, a sinful self, goes counter to the very fiber of your being. It is counter to consciousness itself, but it is not something consciousness would simply reject, but it also will not necessarily acquiesce to it. And that is one of the particular creations of human beings in this plane of existence, that many of you have come here to work out, to iron out, to find ways to dispense with its own inner authority. So you see that manifested in many ways, people leaving their religious organizations, the ones they grew up in, and not necessarily to join another, but simply to end those kinds of affiliations. This also represents itself in many different kinds of political movements and views. People no longer want the kind of oppressive or suppressive so-called authority that you have lived with for a very long time. People no longer want so-called leaders to tell them what to think, how to think, what to eat, when to sleep, who to love, and so on and so forth. It is within your inherent nature to determine these things for yourselves, by yourselves. And even though there is a fear that if the authority or leadership is not present, you will go to hell in a handbasket, such a thing would not occur. It only occurs when you actually fight and resist that inner urge to return to your spiritual roots. Does that make some sense to you?
That's to me.
So this is actually a very, very big deal. And understanding this will also change the game, not just for you, but for everyone. But it will take, in your terms, some degree of time in order to fully express itself. But the particular question in this area is, how much time or distance is between now and then? Does that actually exist? The answer is no, but you have to work this out in your own terms. So it is a very deep subject matter. And again, has the world gone bananas? Yes or no? It all depends on the appeal that you give it. We thought you would love this one.
Yes, got it.
Right now, it doesn't seem terribly appealing.
Would anybody else care to share something?
Well, Kris, I think what you were kind of hinting at when you were saying, is that state or those ideas, how far in the future are they? It's that already exists right now, either as a probability, as a probability or possibility in this moment. Can you go a little bit deeper into
Indeed, it
that?
does. Indeed, it already exists in what you may call the simultaneous now. And interestingly enough, throughout history, there have been all kinds of revolts, revolutions. The poor and the downtrodden will revolt against their so-called overlords, only to themselves become the next generation of overlords, where they too will eventually be overturned. Because you do not necessarily understand the nature of the oppression. The oppression does not come from outside. It will come from outside only because you refuse to recognize that the oppressor is yourself through the kinds of belief systems that you entertain that actually keep you locked in your little cage. So once you understand the nature of oppression, then any form of external manifestation eventually crumbles. It will no longer affect you. And you are the authors of your freedoms. And you do not have to ride in convoys of trucks to express your freedom. It is already yours to be had. You simply have to use it. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems,
Perhaps
sorry, it
continue.
just seems to be, for the power to be there, there has to be collaboration between like-minded people for their voices to be heard.
First of all, there has to be an inner consensus, a synchronicity with your own self, that you will literally eschew, drop the layers or the weight of the past and continue your journey in a much lighter manner. And once you are able to understand and actually act upon this, others may suddenly recognize a change in you and they may inquire, or they may suddenly begin to have thoughts and ideas about dropping their own weights of the past and themselves experience the freedom which gives joy, which gives peace, which gives health. When enough people have aligned in this way, then there are massive events, literally mass events, that begin to occur. It could be in small pockets of individuals that bring bigger pockets of individuals, that bring large numbers and even nations together. So these kinds of revolutions always must start within. There is no other way. Otherwise, you keep repeating the same difficulties and challenges from the overlords that you overthrew. So in this case, the overlords are the thoughts, the beliefs, the expectations that weigh heavily upon you and do not allow you to express your own freedom because you are too busy complicating your lives. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Indeed. Anyone else would like to participate?
Well, everything you said so far, Kris, is making great sense to me. I know that what I've observed is that as I make those inner changes that you've been describing, what I notice is that the type of people that surround me are a reflection of what I'm doing with my own inner environment. In other words, I'm seeing more and more individuals start to embrace their own self-directedness and to move in ways that are more fulfilling for them than I used to, let's say 5 or 10 years ago, because I've come to a place where I'm embracing more of that myself.
Indeed. And it is a natural byproduct of such an inner evolution that some people may disappear from your lives simply because they have a different kind of journey to continue. But other people come into your lives assisting and helping to fulfill in a collaborative manner the intentions that you all want to express. So, of course, there are sometimes some situations where things appear complicated. But it is only because you might be holding on to your own past a little too strongly. And by that, we do not imply that all of your past must be thrown out the window, but at least those parts of your past that you may consider responsible for your challenges today. Because none of your challenges today are the result of your past actions. You are instead drawn, literally drawn by your future selves. Your own future entices you, encourages you. Sometimes your decisions might appear a little difficult, a little strange to you. You might have impulses without necessarily understanding the ins and outs, maybe even a little bit beyond your usual understanding of your intelligence or intellect, but they are intuitive. And you might recognize that some of the steps and some of the things you do today actually lead you into tomorrow, and those lead you into the day after. Because you do not live according to your past. You live according to the multitudes of futures available to you. And through your dream states, through your intuitive nature, you make selective choices that lead you into directions that fulfill you far more than you ever thought possible. Does that make some sense to you? Or have we blown your circuits?
No, it does. And this is what's nice, I think, about having spent a certain amount of time exploring this type of information, because it gives you a perspective where you can see where you've trusted those things, how they've worked out. And they do that over and over again. And so after a while, being able to entrust things like your impulses and your intuition gets so much easier than when it once was. And so your life then tends to work much more smoothly in that regard, because you're combining all the various components of yourself in such an integrated way.
Indeed. And part of the reason why we selected the main title, Has the World Gone Bananas?, is yes, it has gone bananas, simply because the past can no longer be relied upon to guide your future. Your future is what guides you along its path. So the old no longer applies. The restraints that have held you down, you may be thinking that something you did 20 years ago is affecting or influencing or traumatizing or haunting or hurting you today. If you let go of that notion, you will recognize that your future is available to you, and it is free of all of the pains and the traumas that you have carried with you, perhaps for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It is high time that you and your species recognize this. It is for your own well-being. So if you do recognize that you have been thinking along those lines, something happened to you 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and it is preventing you from enjoying life and you are suffering and traumatized by it, we urge you to no longer subscribe to it. What do you do when you keep receiving email solicitations from some product you do not want? You look at the bottom and it says unsubscribe here. You click that. Correct?
Yes.
In the old days, you would take pictures and rub the people out of your lives. Today, it is so much simpler. You just click unsubscribe and it is done. So our suggestion is unsubscribe from those particular events and conditions that you keep mulling in your mind. You will not make mulled wine out of it. It will get very moldy and it will hinder you further. So we have a little exercise, if you like, that can help and assist you in this particular direction. And it involves your hands, your fingers. You all have 10 fingers. Rather, 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. So we just call them 10 fingers. And now, because of the camera and the microphone, it will be a little bit difficult, but hold your hands a few feet, perhaps a foot and a half or so away from you. Now, think of a particular event or situation from anywhere upon your past timeline that you would like to neutralize, end the process of feeding it energy, because the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. And eventually it eats you. So just momentarily hold that in your mind's eye. And with your physical eyes, look at your hand, and from the top of your finger, with your eyes, look all the way to the base of the finger, and then the next top of finger to the base of the finger, the next top of finger to base of finger, top of finger to base, top of thumb to base, and then top of thumb to base on the next hand, top of finger to base, 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 and now repeat it backwards. Top of finger to base, 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 top of finger to base. Now, how does that feel?
For me, it feels more difficult now to pull that image and the feelings that are associated with it into my awareness than it did before I did that.
Do others agree?
Yes,
Yes.
that was well put. Yeah.
Indeed. Now, of course, when you do it, you do not have to go top of finger to base. You just do it. It becomes a little more simple and very, very effective. This is another means by which you can scramble the neural pathways through which memories and energy flow into your awareness and physicality.
I have to say, Kris, that for a moment there, when you said to, look for something in your past that you've been holding on to, I had a moment almost of anxiety of, oh no, I can't let that go. I can't. What will happen if I let that go? I need it. I need to hang on to it.
And then?
And then it felt neutral. I mean, it's not gone. It's just, the anxiety wasn't there. Even the anxiety of worrying about letting it go wasn't even there.
And it no longer has the heavy charge that
Right.
it used to. It is still part of your history, but it is no longer something that needs to kick you up the backside. And you could say, in a manner of speaking, that you are giving those traumatic parts of your past not just one finger, but 10 fingers.
Saw that.
Indeed. So you can utilize this in any situation that may give you a little bit of hassle, or rather, we should say that you utilize to give yourselves some more hassle. Because no one can hassle you like yourselves, and you all know that. So this is a nice way to unhassle yourselves. And you will find this brings a much sweeter air or mood into your being, into your life. And one thing we would suggest, once you have done this, and you may do it a few times at any particular sitting to make sure that you actually feel correct with it. And once you are satisfied, whether it is 1, 3, or 5 times, then however it is possible, whether you can go outside, or perhaps you are looking out your balcony or window at people and things, events of life, and just start thinking about the spark of goodness, the spark of life, the spark of the sacred and the holy in the individuals that you see, in the creatures that you see, in the things that you see, including your very own self. And you will find it is perhaps a lot easier than you have ever thought possible to think of yourselves in that way. blessed, sacred, holy. And consider it a very nice gift to your lovely selves. Now, Dan, do you think it is time for a break?
Yeah, we can take our break here.
Indeed.
Thank you, Kris. So welcome back, Kris.
Indeed, we are happy to be back again.
Well, I got to hand it to you.
And
That was a great session last time.
we will let you get away with it once or twice. Now, the main part of all of this is to convey, in perhaps a different way, how you create your own realities, how you create your own situations. You are both the authors of your joys as well as your sorrows. It depends on what you give attention to, where you focus your thoughts, your minds, your energy. You can choose to be miserable, or you can choose to end your misery. Not by hobbling yourselves, though you hobble yourselves psychologically and emotionally and energetically when you hold on to your misery. And we trust you understand the reference as well. The main idea is, if you want joy, do not expect it from outside sources. You must sow the seeds of your own joy now, simply because you truly harvest what you sow. But that happens internally. It does not happen from outside sources. When it happens internally, then you gladly share of it with others through your deeds. In other words, do not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So when you travel that inner journey, you discover more of whom and what you are. And the more you do that, the more powerful your journey becomes. It becomes an expression of that journey of inner discovery. The human experience is immensely colorful. It is incredibly creative. Even in your darkest manifestations, you are still being very creative, though it is definitely to your advantage to not be so dark and heavy-handed with yourselves and your creations. Be light-hearted. Be gentle. So we are humbly then extending an invitation to each and every one of you present now and who will listen to this into the future, to be gentle and loving with yourselves and to sow those seeds of love in the deepest parts of your heart and nurture those seedlings as they grow and blossom. So we do not necessarily want to make this a much longer second presentation. Does anyone have a particular question or observation before we end the discussion?
Kris, I had a question on the story then that we create. So when we do that exercise and we no longer have those effects on us emotionally, then what happens to that story that we created?
The energy in itself can never be annihilated or destroyed. It gets transformed. So instead of being something now that may traumatize or haunt you, it will be transformed into something that can help you grow well beyond any notions that you could have imagined whilst you were still stuck with the past. So, in a manner of speaking, you might bemoan the idea that somehow or other you do not have wings to fly like the eagle. Once you let go of that notion, you neutralize it through this little exercise, all of a sudden you may notice you have those damn wings and you can use them. You can spread them. You can fly as high as the eagle, figuratively speaking, of course. And you can launch into all sorts of new adventures because you are no longer utilizing your energies to dampen or hamper yourself, but instead transform it into literal jet fuel to fly above any limitations that you had previously imposed upon yourself. So the energy is just transformed, and that happens. This is what energy is. It can never be destroyed, never annihilated. It cannot be suppressed, but it can be transformed. That is the nature of the thing. Does that make some sense to you?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Indeed. And with that, we thank you for your lovely consideration. And indeed, allow yourselves to fly like the eagle. And we return Joseph to you.
Thank you, Kris.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kris.
Kris.
Thanks, Kris.
Thank you,
Thank
Kris.
you, Kris.
Thank you, Kris.
Thanks, Kris.
Thank you, Kris.
Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to leave a question for Kris, drop it in the comments below. Myself, Serge, or someone from the Kris team will be checking these. We're going to use them to drive the discussion and also put them into future episodes. So if you want to interact with Kris and the Kris community, feel free. Put your questions below, and we'd like to see you here again next time. Thanks.